Welcome. We got Brian here.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian. You take it away.
Yeah, so today we wanted to talk about the commission form. I know that's something that we rolled out in beta. It's probably been about a month ago now. And so I've invited a guest to come in today. That's Clint Neal. Clint, I don't know if you want to show your face or not, but so Clint runs a team out of San Antonio, Texas.
I'm on now.
Hey, Clint. And it's a KW team, and he's been using the commission form. From all the people I've met with, Clint actually has the most complex structure of anybody. So I thought if he can use the form, anybody can. So what we'll do is we'll start with Clint just walking you through how he's using our commission form, how he's replaced what he was doing. Clint, maybe you can talk about what you were doing before, what you're doing now, and then I'll jump in and share some examples as well.
Cool. Yeah, before I was actually using a company called CTE, that and just a ton of spreadsheets. So like Brian said, yeah, we do have kind of a very complex structure. We do have lead agents that make money off of the team side. I mean, there's transaction fees, the caps are kind of different, inter-office and what I pay KW. So it's a pretty complex structure, but using Sisu, it obviously has narrowed that down a lot, and going from a spreadsheet to this, and I'll show you exactly how I use it. I'll have three kind of different scenarios on transactions. I know Brian's going to kind of get into more of how to set up the entities, and it'll make more sense when I start going through this, but I'll just kind of break some down. I'm going to share my screen real quick, make sure y'all can see it. One second.
We got it, Clint. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. All right. I'll just kind of go through, like I said, I'm going to go through a couple different transactions, and I'll just kind of explain going through them. Obviously, going to admin and then going and then clicking on the commission form. So I have one of these that are set up right now. So our primary agent, John, he is a buyer agent on the team. Most of y'all agents, a lot of them deal with like your ELP, your Dave Ramsey. So this first one I'm going to show is going to be more in detail of like a referral fee that is paid off the GCI. So coming in here, obviously transaction amount, the GCI right now is $7,800. Now, if you know ELP leads, they have referral fees. They're anywhere 28%, 30%, something like that. Right here. Now, when you go in and you can add in your entities and how I can autofill this stuff a lot quicker. I'm not going to jump into it a lot because like I mentioned to Brian earlier, probably explaining that in a little more detail probably on this call. But if you come in and say you have a 30% referral fee, this takes it directly off GCI here, which drops it down. So now you have your adjusted GCI at $5,460.
Clint, can you just press the add button up there on referral adjustments to GCI? Just so right there. Let's just show, so it shows all of his preset adjustments there. So he can go ahead and choose any of the categories that he set up and just click on it, and then it auto-populates.
Exactly. So like, for example, here I can have referral, and I just thought of a really good thing right when I was going through this stuff earlier, is if you're paying out a bunch of these referral companies, your ELP, Home Lights, all Fast Expert, you're paying them out consistently, you'd obviously want to have an adjustment in here where it says ELP referral. Then you can start tracking how many you're paying these referral sources. But that's just another thing I just literally saw about 5 minutes ago. So
one thing you could do, Clint, too, is you could click referral, and then an entity, you could create an entity for each one of those different entities that you might be paying that referral out to.
Yeah, so Zillow would be one, and we're actually building a report right now that will total all of the commissions you've paid out and how much you've paid to each agent, how much you've paid to each entity. And so it'll actually track what you, Clint, have paid to KW, what you've paid to Zillow, what you've paid to whomever else you're getting referrals from. So
exactly. So once your stuff is set up and say you're paying a referral, like Brian was saying, You come in here, it's already deducting it off of GCI automatically. Now you can do it percentage based or amount depending on what you want to do. If you wanted to do percent, I'm not going to click it because I have this other one in there, but it would auto populate right off of GCI, and you can click add and it goes right to it. So it would kick in and it will look just like it does right here. So it's just a lot easier. I know people using spreadsheets, there's a lot of number crunching back and forth in that. This just makes it, to me, it streamlines it big time, especially like our complex system that Brian says. So coming down a little bit more, we're a 50-50 on buyer agent business when they close the deal. So it's showing the adjusted GCI here, then drops it down to a 50-50 split. Now, agent splits, it's just really pulling this directly down here. This is where it starts getting a little bit more kind of confusing depending on, for example, I'll take a broad approach. Everybody usually has caps when you're with brokerages. So for example, I have a 5% off the team cap that happens like right off of the GCI total. I have to take 390 off and it goes to KW. I have it set up in the entities where this, it will obviously show it down here totaled in this number of how much I'm paying them. So another one, transaction fees. I don't know, most people use or have transaction fees. Some people, the agent pays for it if they don't get it. Like our team is, if the client doesn't pay it, the agent does. If you want to look at this and you want to make it where you can show it as income, you're adding it back into your Neal team splits here. So going into that, that will allow for reporting. So down monthly, yearly, however you want to see how much you're making off a transaction fee, you'll be able to do it by adding it in here. For example, let's say the client did not pay for the transaction fee, and since it's mandatory on our team, the agent would pick it up. I would just go in here, and I'll just kind of do this one as like a live example. I would just go in here. I would go right here. I would do a deduct from that agent amount of $495. In the entity, I don't even have to do that because it's going to add it right back in, but it deducts, come on, all right. It would deduct it here and add it back to myself as a real estate team owner. So it's just showing and keeping record of all of that stuff as you keep doing it. So again, this is just an example of the client didn't pay it and the agent had to. Now, if like the client pays it, it's just a direct income right to the bottom line of the team. So you add it right in here. You'll see where it says KW broke 5%. That's the 5% that we pay as the team until we hit our cap. So this is where ours gets a little bit kind of confusing because as a KW team, we have a certain cap that we pay into. All the agents are on their individual caps within our team. So I don't want to get crazy in detail of this because it could go on and on forever on that aspect of it. But another one, E&O. So if you really just kind of take your transaction, take your commission disbursement, your DA, and look at it and all the fees that you typically see. Now, KW, you have your E&O. You have once you cap at our office, we have just a $25 transaction fee. There's certain little things in there like that you can just set these up as adjustments depending on what side of the agent or the team is paying it. So let's just kind of E&O, it's pretty common. Our agents pay the E&O. So right here, I have set up an adjustment where it goes E&O agent to KW, meaning that it pays directly to KW. It's not kind of subtracting here, adding in and back into mine, not doing any of that kind of stuff. So like I said, ours is very different because like on an E&O, for example, we're capped the E&O out as well because we do quite a few transactions. So I'm able to subtract it from an agent, add it back into myself when I'm capped, and obviously you turn it into a profit center. So that's probably the biggest one on this one. At the very end of this too, kind of right here, you can kind of see, this is where if you're paying your agents out, I know Brian's talking about doing it where it populates a DA sometime in the future, but this just shows all your stuff that you pay out at the very end. Once you're done, I know you have another one in here like a leader income. There's leaders, buyer agents that have a leader above them. So that comes out of our side of 5%, but again, it's subtracted out and it adds it down here and puts it in here. When you're done with everything, certify for payment is it's the easiest thing. Keeps a record of it all right here.
So Clint, if you hit the print button, go ahead and do that. So that's pretty much the CDA right there. It just breaks everything down and it eliminates everything that's on the side. So if you print that out, it'll actually show all the payments going out.
That is correct. Is there any other specific questions on it? There's a couple other little examples as well. I can go through. The next one, this one is pretty similar. It's a lot easier to kind of follow because we are capped out and this agent is actually capped as well. But there is a referral fee. So I can just kind of go over this one kind of briefly. If you have a transaction amount, here's your GCI, obviously. Going into a referral, now this is a relocation, so I think it's like 40-something% that's paid out. So when I set that up, we just type in the amount, it brings it down to your adjusted GCI down here. Now, when you get into the splits with the team, we have a different split structure on non-team generated if somebody procures their own lead. So, for example, he's making 60% of the GCI, which you can see here on these two. This, of course, brings it down. This is a very good example. The client did pay the transaction fee. So when you add a transaction fee in here, it basically comes straight from the client, adding income to the bottom line on the Neil team side. And this was that kind of example I gave a little bit on the E&O. So, for example, the team and our agent is capped within our team. So on the E&O side of it, since we are capped on the E&O, this is where it kind of starts showing where I keep record of all that because, like I said, you can turn it into kind of a small profit center like we can, but I take the E&O off of the agent side, then I turn around and I add it back in with another entry to the team. So it will decrease the income on the agent side, but add income to the bottom line of the team side. Now, if we were not capped on this E&O stuff, it would just be E&O team, but this is paying directly to KW. So you will not make an entry up here. KW in our office, once we're capped, there's a $25 transaction fee that's paid on every single deal, which our agents do pay for that if they are capped within our team. And it's just making an entry here and going straight to them. Now, there's a lot of like foundations, different things. Like we do it with KW Cares where it's we donate to $10 every transaction. We started probably a few months ago with this. So you can actually set up an entity where if the agent is going to want to opt in or opt out of paying towards this foundation, I can add that in right here where it just literally turns it into an entity and pays it directly to them and keeps track of how much each agent basically is paid, or as a team we've paid to this entity. Looking at the bottom, it breaks down the total income as the team, adding in the 495, adding in the 90, adding in our split. Same thing with the agent. It subtracts out what it needs to, but it obviously take the 4275, subtract out the stuff that I have minus off of them, and that's where you get this number. I have KW brokerages because KW broke because that's me paying the brokerage at $25 since we're all capped on this transaction. And then of course showing your KW Cares at $10. So it makes it very simple to break down and look exactly at the very end of the day. Our VA has got into this now, and I think she's back into April now, but started going back through all our transactions and doing this. So if you have a way to train a VA to do that, once you kind of really get the hang of it, it makes it way easier on that aspect.
So Clint, maybe we could just show an example. I think if somebody's looking at this, they're like, well, adding in that 495, adding in KW Cares, that stuff, I mean, it looks a little complex looking at it now, but with all the things you've done to set it up, maybe you could just click on Jim Bell and hit add and show how easy it is to maybe add another KW Cares and then we'll delete it.
Okay. Yeah, sure can. So if our agent opted in to pay this $10, all the VA, yourself, transaction team would have to do is literally go right in here. They would click this because I've already set this up to go to the entity. It's going to deduct off of the agent an amount. So let's say he was generous this month and wanted to give $100 to them. And once I click add to that, it automatically subtracts it here. And again, it tracks it right down here as well.
So the thing I want to point out, all he had to do is really click add, click KW Cares, hit submit, and it's going to automatically do that for this transaction. It's not like he's having to go through and change that to $100 every time. It's all automated. So he knows that that's happening on this transaction. If there's a change, then he is going in and changing that. An example of that would be when the agent is paying the transaction fee rather than the customer paying the transaction fee. In that case, rather than that being an add, he changed that to a deduct because he was deducting it from the agent. But other than that, it's all pre-set up. So Clint, thank you so much for being willing to share that. You might want to deduct that. Did you already delete that 110? Yeah. Okay, great. If you want to, does anyone have questions for Clint before we let him stop his share? I know Clint had something else he needed to jump into today, so.
All right, well, I think good to go. But yeah, if y'all have any questions on specifics like this, I think the biggest is just getting with Brian or Zach and getting all the entities and all that stuff set up of who you pay and how your structure of your team is. And once you have that, it is really easy to train a VA or have your transaction team do it in just a few clicks every single time, and you knock it out super quick. So, but I appreciate it all.
Great, Clint, thank you so much. I'm going to, if you want to stop your share, I'll walk through some of the setup on those things.
All right, I'll do that right now.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate you joining us.
All right, thank you.
Okay, everyone can see my screen? Okay, so a couple of things I wanted to go over here. One thing is, here you're seeing the certification history. So every time you click certify, it's going to log that. Or if you decertify it by coming down here and clicking decertify, another way you can decertify it is you can actually go in here and make a change to this commission form once it's been certified. That way you can just see what updates are happening or who's made those changes. So I'm going to decertify this real quick because I want to share the first and most important thing here is that transaction amount, GCI, and agent paid income are put in there initially to start, because this is really where this is coming from. So we know the transaction amount, we know the GCI, and this agent paid income is based off of their split, which you can just do from this calculator right here. So what percentage of GCI are they getting? Is it 50%? Is it 40%? Whatever that is, once that's accurate, it's going to take those numbers and it's going to pull it down here. So if I have an outside referral on this transaction, first thing I'm going to do is that's 25%. I just click add, put an outside referral right here. And just by doing that, it automatically knew that my outside referrals are 25%. And I can put a memo in there as well that says this referral was from whom. And just so you're tracking and you have record of that. So then it does adjust and it makes your GCI now move from 22.5 down to 16,875. So it's doing a subtotal here each time. So then that's the first thing that comes off is a referral. Then we have our pre-split adjustments. In this case, I'm taking my transaction fee right here. You saw Clint took a transaction fee down here. There's two ways to do it. This way, if it's a pre-split adjustment, that means that this is going to adjust your GCI back up to 17,370. And so the agent is going to share in this transaction fee if you do it up here. So if you keep 100% of that for your team, you don't want to do the transaction fee in the pre-split adjustment. You want to do it in the post-split adjustment. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so once again, now it's done that. Now it's saying, okay, this is the adjusted GCI. This is how much is coming to my team or my brokerage. And then this is how much is going to the agent based on everything that's set up at that point. Now that agent has a split. Zach was showing, Zach showed some homes for me. I paid him $250 to do that. So Zach now here gets an agent split. So if I add an agent split in here, I'm just able to come in, choose from any agents in my business, and then I can put a reason, and I can either do a percentage or I can do an amount. In this case, I had told Zach I'm going to pay him $250, and so I just did it that way. Now that $250, you can see down here, the one thing I haven't done is said, oh, Zach needs to pay a brokerage for that $250. So you can see he's showing he's getting the full $250, but in most cases, he's going to have fees come off of that still. So if I came in here and said, okay, I'm going to charge Zach his royalty fee on that. And that is going to go to the real estate corporate entity. I'm just going to add that in here. And now you can see Zach has $50 coming out of that. And that $50 is now being paid to this real estate corporate entity. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. I just wanted to walk you through a little bit more detail on how this is all broken out. When it gets down here, these post-split adjustments, this is where I can say, oh, the client wasn't charged that fee, so I'm going to charge a transaction fee to the agent here, and I'm going to apply it to the team here, which I know a lot of people do that. So hopefully that makes sense. Pretty simple. Once I get done with that, I'm going to certify this again. And now, once again, I can print this out. And rather than printing it, it's really just a print view. Now I could take this and I could email it to anybody I want to. But again, it's going to show total payments going out right here. So if you want to share that with your brokerage, this is what you can print and just email a copy of this. So I'm going to go into the setup now. But actually, before I do that, one thing I wanted to point out, a lot of you may or may not have noticed, we had a bunch of people ask, hey, I want to be able to see all my vendors on a transaction. And this is mostly from the TCs. They're like, in this buyer contract to close form, all my vendors are in here, but I don't have all their contact info. And so they were having to go back to the setup page to get that. So we added the vendors here. And this is kind of shifting gears for a minute, but I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of this. So now, as they're going out to contact those vendors, if they want to call them, all that information is right here. So just a quick way to get to the vendors that are assigned to this transaction. So if I come back into this commission form, actually, I'm going to jump over here. If I go to admin commissions, what comes up is this. So there's two things. One is the adjustment categories. So you can see here, I can come in here and create any category. And it's important that any scenario that ever happens in your pay structure, let's add it in here. So you can see I have an outside referral here. I'm going to deduct that from an agent. And and I'm going to pay 25% out. So that's just a normal thing that I did here. I also have an inside referral, which means I'm paying an agent inside, and I'm going to deduct that. So you could also say I send a referral out. So you can set up any different scenarios you want here. If you have ISA adjustments where you give an ISA $500 per transaction, you're just going to add that here so that it's automatically going to fill in when you're doing your commission form. And then if for some reason there's a change on a one-off where instead of paying $500, you're paying, just as an example, you're paying $1,000, when you go to add that in, you can just make an adjustment on that one-time change as you're adding that in. Otherwise, it'll all be automated. So you're going to put all your royalties in here. Your sales manager overrides are going to be in here. If I want to go in here and edit this and say, I'm only paying my sales manager 5% now, I'm just going to update that. And now every transaction, it's just going to take a 5% override to pay that sales manager. So that's the first thing we're setting up here. If you set these up and make sure you get them all set up, it'll make it really easy as you're going through your transaction form or your commission form to get that done. So on the entity adjustments, these are really which entities are being paid out. So, you know, if you're at Berkshire Hathaway and you have a royalty fee of 6% that you're paying them, or if you're paying your brokerage a percentage of your transaction fee, let's say you're paying them $2.95 every transaction fee, you're just going to want to set it up so that you're automatically paying them $2.95 of every transaction fee. And then here, you can actually set BHHS up as an entity that you're paying. And when you go in to pay that, if I come back to this, you can see every one of these, I get to choose an entity as to who I'm paying. And now in the report that we're building right now that will summarize all of this data, this is going to allow you to know this is how much I paid to Berkshire Hathaway this year. This is how much I've paid to my local brokerage this year. This is how much I've paid in E&O this year. So it's all going to be broken out and totaled here for you as a team and for each agent as well. So you'll be able to very quickly go in and see, okay, how much has an agent paid towards their cap? If an agent wants to know that, which I know that's one of the most commonly asked questions from agents, is how much do I have left on my cap? That's all going to be right here. So anyway, I think that gives a pretty good overview. Unless let's open it up to questions. Unless Zach, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think it's complete. Just adding in those different entities, and I think you covered a lot of it. I don't know if anyone else has questions. There's a lot of different scenarios that you might be curious about.
So the one thing we did when we built this was, in talking to a couple dozen teams and brokerages that we work with, everybody had a different scenario. Everyone had a different way that they wanted to pay. Everyone, I mean, it's not the same. It's never the same. Even if you're at the same brokerage, I found it's not the same. So we wanted to give you full capability and flexibility to make this specific for your business. So again, the most important thing to do is go in and make sure you set it up from the beginning. And then as you go in on each transaction, it makes this really easy.
One thing, Brian, that I get a lot of people want to know, okay, so I have an agent split where, you know, say instead of me being a showing assistant there, I'm an ISA, and I'm an ISA that's paid by the team, and I don't come out of the agent's income. How do I manage that? That's a question I get pretty frequently.
So anything that's coming out of the team, rather than it being an agent split, that's really a team split if it's coming out of the team.
Well, so in this case, what I'm saying is I want that agent to see income on their dashboard, but I don't want to pay them out of the agent paid income. I want to pay them out of the team income. So how do you, I have some ways that I typically do it, but how do you usually adjust for that?
So are you saying it only shows up on their dashboard if it's paid from here?
Yep. you can't add in an agent split down below in the post-split adjustments. You can only create a split type.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess one way to do that, and you can probably address this better than me, but really quick, one way I could do that is I could do an agent split here, pay out, let's just say $100 for that. And then I could add in $100 from here that I'm reimbursing that agent for the team.
Yeah,
That's one.
you would do that, but then you would have to also subtract it from, you would have to add it back in on the primary agent and subtract it from the brokerage. And that's how you would get it. So it's not ideal, but it works for now.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, scenarios like that, this is why we still show this as beta. If there are some scenarios like that that are a little bit challenging, that might be 3 steps like that happens to be, share it with us and let us brainstorm and try to figure out how to simplify that for you.
All right, well, I think we can wrap it up unless there are any questions. We'll record this, put it out there, and we'll see you guys again next week.
All right, thanks for joining, everyone.
Yep, thanks everyone. We'll see ya.